Hi everyone. Haven't been on YouTube in about 10 years, but I wanted to come on here and I just wanted to say a little bit about Michael Ray Richardson, who passed away November 11th at the age of 70 due to complications from prostate cancer. So in 2011, in my hometown of London, Ontario, Canada, there was a new professional basketball league that was founded called the National Basketball League of Canada, and one of the flagship franchises was a team called the London Lightning. And Michael Ray was the first inaugural head coach of the Lightning. And at the time, I was 21 years old, and I started working for the team for the 2012-2013 season, which was the second season of the team's existence. They had just come off the championship, and I was doing stats and scouting for the team. And so I worked for Michael for 2 seasons, and we'd kept in touch after he had left the Lightning in 2014, and we had kept in touch afterwards. I had called him and asked him if he would be one of my references on my resume, and he said that was all right. And we had talked. I had talked to him in 2016 for a school project that I did, and we'd kept in touch kind of off and on, since then. In 2021, he contacted me wanting to get back into coaching, and so I had reached out to a few teams in the National Basketball League of Canada at the time, and then he had contacted me also in 2023 about getting back into coaching. His friend, Derek Rowland, who coached the Albany Patroons and still coaches the Patroons, I believe, had talked with Michael, and they had talked, and Michael, there was an opening in Newfoundland, a team called the Newfoundland Rogues, and Michael wanted to coach the team. He wanted the job, so he called me, and he had asked me to make some calls, which I did. I reached out to some teams in the NBL, some franchises there, as well as franchises in the CEBL, which at the time was a 6-year-old league, which is a league that plays, they play in the summer, so they're different. They play for a 4-month season, I think, from I want to say April and May to August, the end of August. So I reached out to a couple teams on Michael's behalf, and nothing had come of it. And in 2020, in 2022, I had interviewed with a job at the NBA in Secaucus, and my hiring manager actually knew Michael, and we had talked about that. When I was working at the league, we talked about that briefly, how he knew Michael. I guess they worked overseas and in the U.S. with, clinics and things through the NBA Cares program. And when Michael was an ambassador for the Nuggets back in the day. But I last talked with Michael in 2023. I was living in Jersey at the time, and he was coming to New York for a couple days, and we had wanted to get in touch, and he had told me that I had called him, and then he had called me back, and he said, I got an appointment here, but we will meet up again. We'll meet up when I'm back in the area or when I'm around. And we never got that meetup. And I had talked to him or texted with him on his birthday, and I had messaged him, and I said, there was a story that Mark Spears of Anscape had put out on Anscape, and it was a recent story from the spring, and it talked about, the title was Michael Ray Richardson Counting His Blessings in Oklahoma. And I texted Michael on April 11th. I texted him, it was his 70th birthday. I texted him happy birthday. And then in June, when I had read that article, when I read the piece that Mark Spears did, I had texted Michael, and I said, I just read the piece, and I said, God bless you. I said, I always had great respect for you. And that was the last exchange that I had with him. I didn't know he was sick, so his passing was a shock to me, and very sad. He was somebody who believed in me, and I was 22 years old at the time when I worked for him. Just trying to cut my teeth, right? And I had actually heard kind of through the grapevine that he had said that my scouting reports were the best that he'd ever read. So, and I had asked him, on one occasion, I had said, is the report good? And he was like, oh yeah, real good, Yeah, Michael meant a lot to me. He meant a lot to millions of people, not just in the U.S., not just in Canada, but overseas. The impact, you think about the global impact that somebody like that has, right? He plays in the NBA. His situation happens. He leaves the NBA. He goes over in Europe and plays till age 46. So this guy had a 14-year career in Europe, and he went over there at the age of, 32. So just remarkable, and the lives he touched in all those different countries, and the impact that he made. He really made basketball his life's work. And him and Otis Birdsong, who was a brother of his former teammates, but they were, I talked to Michael on occasion, and he said, me and Otis are like brothers. They had run camps for underserved youth in Florida, Texas, and Colorado, and Jersey, and the camps were free. Michael really made basketball his life's work, and really made an impact on people through the game of basketball. And he knew so many people, impacted so many people, so many different places. From Denver, from winning a state title, in high school, to going to Montana and, being a 3-time all-conference guy there and having his number retired at that school. And then going to the Knicks and setting records, and the Nets and setting records, and the upset in '84 of the Philadelphia 76ers that the Nets did in round 1 of the defending champions, and comeback player of the year in '85. Goes over to Europe, wins titles, wins Italian Cups, wins MVPs, wins steals titles, assists titles, all-star games, everything. And then he coaches, and he wins titles coaching. He coaches in Albany, he coaches in Oklahoma, then he coaches in Canada and wins. He just, the impact that he had, I think, is very understated maybe and overlooked by a lot of people. I think, people look at him and they say, this guy overcame, his issues and to do better and to do great things, which he did. But I think there's so much emphasis on his struggles and not his successes, and I think his successes have to be looked at and really examined. And I think personally that he should be in the Hall of Fame, or should get serious consideration. I think when you look at other guys that are in the Hall of Fame, his numbers go up against anybody's. This guy had he played parts of 8 seasons in the NBA and led the league in steals 3 times, and was an assist leader and was one of the first one of the first players in league history to lead the league in assists and steals. He just he was an amazing player, and but an amazing guy. Impacted me, man. He gave me the confidence. He gave me that reinforcement of that I was doing a great job, and I knew I had to be on my A game because this is an NBA All-Star reading this stuff. So he made me better, whether he knew it or not, and he impacted me greatly, and I'll forever remember him for what he did for me, and what he gave me, and the confidence he had in me, and the belief. And it's just sad, because for somebody like him to overcome what he overcame, and to be just to be taken out by something so vicious, and so quickly to be taken out by something that's just awful. But my prayers go to his family and friends. They'll be in my prayers, and they are in my prayers. And Michael was a great guy. He impacted so many people in so many different ways, and had an amazing, profound impact on me. So rest in peace, Michael Ray. Everybody loves you, so rest in peace.